In just 10 minutes, get the most explosive highlights from the 3-hour Shawn Ryan Show episode with Andrew Bailey, posted on February 27, 2025. From suing China for $25 billion to exposing big tech censorship, government overreach, and more, Bailey dives into the biggest battles shaping America. Stay till the end for insights you won't want to miss. Here are the key takeaways from the podcast. Takeaway 1, suing China for $25 billion. Andrew Bailey has taken an unprecedented step by leading a lawsuit against the Chinese government. He claims that China hoarded personal protective equipment, such as masks and gloves, during the early days of COVID-19, while American states struggled to get these essential supplies. His lawsuit seeks $25 billion in damages for the people of Missouri, arguing that China's actions worsened the crisis and led to unnecessary suffering. He explains that Missouri was one of the first states to take legal action against China, despite critics calling it an impossible case. His team has already made significant progress, and he believes they are on track to win. If successful, the state will identify and seize Chinese-owned assets in Missouri as part of the compensation process. For example, he points out how Missouri hospitals face severe shortages of medical supplies, while reports surface that China was restricting exports and stockpiling goods. He believes China should be held accountable for its role in the global health crisis. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 2, abolishing the ATF. Bailey is a firm believer in gun rights and has openly stated that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, or ATF, should be completely shut down. He argues that the agency oversteps its boundaries and infringes on the rights of law-abiding citizens. Instead of making communities safer, he believes the ATF creates unnecessary regulations that punish responsible gun owners while doing little to stop criminals. His main concern is that the federal government has too much power over firearm regulations. He believes gun laws should be decided at the state level, where local officials understand their community's needs better than federal bureaucrats. For example, he notes that during the founding era, private citizens could own cannons, yet today the government tries to ban certain types of rifles. He argues that these restrictions go against the original intent of the Second Amendment. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 3, fighting big tech censorship. Bailey is deeply concerned about how social media companies control the flow of information. He believes platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and Google manipulate what people see, suppress certain viewpoints, and create an unfair digital environment. He argues that these companies are no longer neutral platforms, but have turned into political tools that silence dissenting voices. To counter this, Bailey is working on a plan that would allow social media users to choose their own algorithms. Instead of being forced to rely on a system controlled by Silicon Valley executives, users could pick content filters that align with their own interests. For example, he compares it to buying a truck and being told you can only use one specific brand of tires. He believes consumers should have the freedom to customize their online experience instead of being limited by big tech monopolies. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 4, lawsuit against Biden administration for censorship. One of Bailey's biggest legal battles has been against the Biden administration. He helped lead the Missouri versus Biden case, which accused government officials of pressuring social media companies to remove content they didn't like. His lawsuit claims that the federal government directly interfered with free speech, violating the First Amendment. During the case, Bailey's team uncovered evidence showing that White House officials aggressively contacted platforms like Facebook and Twitter, demanding that they take down posts related to COVID-19 and the Hunter Biden laptop story. He argues that the government used backdoor channels to censor Americans without their knowledge. For example, he revealed that emails between government officials and tech executives showed instances where the administration was yelling at these companies, insisting they remove posts that contradicted their policies. He believes this type of government pressure is dangerous and sets a precedent for future censorship. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 5, George Soros and the justice system. Bailey claims that billionaire George Soros is funding progressive prosecutors who weaken the criminal justice system. He argues that Soros-backed district attorneys prioritize political agendas over public safety, often choosing not to prosecute violent criminals. He believes this is part of a larger strategy to destabilize America. He explains that many of these prosecutors refuse to hold repeat offenders accountable, which leads to rising crime rates and makes cities more dangerous. He believes it is crucial to elect prosecutors who actually enforce the law rather than pushing ideological policies. For example, he points to a case in St. Louis where a Soros-backed prosecutor was accused of failing to prosecute violent criminals, leading to increased gang violence and law enforcement officers feeling unsupported. We're halfway through the video. Thank you for sticking with us this far. If you're enjoying it, please give us a thumbs up and share it in your WhatsApp groups. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to comment below. To see more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Now let's continue with the video. Takeaway 6, holding Dr. Fauci accountable. Bailey has been outspoken about his belief that Dr. Anthony Fauci played a role in misleading the public about COVID-19. He supports further investigations into Fauci's involvement in funding research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the lab suspected of being the origin of the virus. He argues that Fauci's changing narratives created confusion and harmed public trust in health officials. Bailey wants full transparency on what Fauci knew and when he knew it. For example, he refers to declassified documents suggesting that even the CIA now believes the virus most likely came from a lab, despite years of experts insisting it had natural origins. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 7, protecting the Second Amendment. Bailey is a strong advocate for gun rights and believes Missouri should remain a state where gun ownership is fully protected. He argues that law-abiding citizens should not have to face unnecessary regulations when exercising their constitutional rights. He explains that Missouri already has some of the strongest pro-gun laws in the country, allowing residents to carry firearms without a permit. He wants to ensure these rights remain intact, even as federal agencies push for stricter gun control. For example, he highlights a case where the federal government attempted to impose new restrictions on firearm accessories, but Missouri pushed back to prevent those laws from taking effect within the state. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 8, the role of big pharma. Bailey has raised concerns about pharmaceutical companies and whether they have intentionally blocked access to natural medicines. He believes there should be more openness to alternative treatments, especially for veterans suffering from PTSD. He argues that psychedelics like psilocybin and ibogaine have shown promising results in treating mental health issues, yet these treatments remain difficult to access due to government regulations and pharmaceutical industry lobbying. For example, he mentions how many veterans have found relief through psychedelic therapy, yet these treatments remain illegal or heavily restricted in most states, limiting options for those in need. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 9, balancing work and family life. Despite his demanding career, Bailey makes family life a priority. He explains that being present for his wife and children is just as important as his work in government. He sets boundaries to ensure he spends quality time with his family, even if it means turning off his phone at certain hours. He and his wife also emphasize faith in their household, making time for Bible study and discussions about values with their children. For example, he acknowledges that juggling work and home life can be difficult, but he believes small efforts, like sitting down for dinner together, help keep a family strong. Now let's move to the last takeaway. Takeaway 10, strengthening national security. Bailey believes national security should be a top priority, particularly when it comes to border control. He argues that weak immigration policies have allowed criminals and drugs to flood into the country, endangering American lives. He supports stricter border enforcement and policies that prioritize American safety over political correctness. He believes the current administration has failed to uphold immigration laws, creating loopholes that encourage illegal crossings. For example, he describes how border states are overwhelmed by drug trafficking and human smuggling, and he believes stronger leadership is needed to address the crisis effectively. Here is a brief introduction about Andrew Bailey. Andrew Bailey is a prominent figure in Missouri politics, currently serving as the state's Attorney General. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in learning more about these topics, I encourage you to watch the full podcast on YouTube by clicking on the link in the description below. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like below and share this video in your WhatsApp groups. You can also discuss about this video by commenting below. To get more such videos in your timeline, press the subscribe button below.